Back in July 2014, we relaunched sabmiller.com, our corporate website. The site we had in place previously had been there since about 2008, had done a good job, but with about 850,000 visitors a year and about 5.5 million page views, it was important that we brought it up to date and took into account some of the trends we were seeing at the time. So when we set out the vision for the website, we really wanted to strike a balance between the world of corporate communications and that of the consumer. At the time we felt that a lot of the traditional corporate websites were a bit tired looking, they all looked fairly similar, and we really wanted to bring the business to life, but more than that we wanted to bring beer, the category, to life. So really we set ourselves the challenge of what we called at the time defining a new breed of corporate website. A key element of that was bringing the business to life and bringing beer as a category to life, and we chose to do that through the use of stories and also a wealth of imagery as well that we were lucky enough to have. So there was a challenge really there about content, about stories, and how we presented that at the time. At the time we felt that there were stories out there. We were across 80 different markets, 70,000 employees, we got over 200 beer brands. So there's lots of things going on across the world and lots of stories that existed somewhere out there in the business. But at the time we didn't have any processes in place to kind of collate those, curate those, bring them back so that we could do something with them at the centre. And that really was one of the biggest challenges we faced at the time. So we recognised that challenge from quite early on. So throughout the initial process of defining what we wanted to achieve, we involved some of the key stakeholders from across the business. And that was supported by external research. So we looked at what others were doing. We looked at maybe where the more edgy corporate sites were, and really what it would take to go along that journey. And so we based some of that early thinking both in the external realities of what others were doing, but also through interviews internally to find out really how people felt about telling our story, how confident really the business was in putting itself out there in a little bit more of an open, transparent way. At the time we were amending our brand look and feel. We were also redefining our approach to sustainable development. And there was quite a strong sense that we should stand up and speak more and get some of our stories out there. One of the key factors in ensuring the success of the project was the team we had in place. We had a team within corporate affairs that had credibility of running the previous site and good relationships across the business. They were supported by the IT guys, and then we had a strong relationship with our agency MSL throughout the project. So that was a really important aspect of the delivery. One of the other key elements was the fact that our director at the time really believed in what we were trying to do and resisted the temptation to play it safe in some of the areas where we could have done. So I think that was also something which really helped us to get it over the line in a way where, looking back, it could easily have been blocked or the vision diluted along the way. If we were to do it again, I'd also like to look at making the most of some of the new publishing technologies that exist that support both the editorial planning process through to publishing and analytics and feedback as well. So I think that would be something which we'd look to bake into the site from the word go. I think there's an interesting challenge, or perhaps an opportunity, around the convergence of internal and external communications and having to think in a more connected way. We've got examples at SAB Miller of brand ambassadors, employees from the business talking about our products and about the business that they're part of in the wider web, and I think there's something to be said about the value of that. We've also got examples of where we've uncovered great stories within our internal social network, Yammer, and how we've then packaged that up, presented that externally, and then sort of brought that back into the organisation as sort of by way of feedback, and there's a really positive flow that creates, and really positive impact on employees. Now, that's happened in patches here and there, but I think there's a real challenge in making both of those things much more systemic, so that you're making the most of the employee workforce as spokespeople for the organisation, but you're also making the most of the stories coming out from within and wrapping them up in the right way. So over the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about things like always on, 24/7, the fact that the world's becoming a smaller place, that information moves from one part of the world to another in an instant, the disintermediation of the media, a whole range of trends. And for me, fundamentally at the heart of that is something around transparency, that information from one part of the world can be held up against you in another part of the world. Ultimately, there's no place to hide. So really it's down to being authentic, being transparent, being open, and doing things in the right way.